Okay, welcome to How to Unlock Insane Focus on Demand at the highest level. This is talking about flow state. If you don't know what flow state is, it's that place where you're so focused on the task that time disappears. You can spend hours on something and it feels like minutes, or opposite, you spend minutes on something and it feels like hours. Flow state is like the ultimate form of focus. I want to talk about essentially how to achieve that. We're going to cover my personal approach to understanding what focus is, talk about a three-step system to be able to lock in wherever, whenever you want, basically. My three best methods for achieving this flow state, this peak focus. We'll talk about my theory of turning life into flow state and how you can basically just stay in flow, make it your normal state of existence. And then we'll end it with like my number one non-negotiable. So let's get started. My personal approach to focus and why this matters. So, so you better understand like why I'm making this video, what I'm talking about. I guess like we'll start with this. My personal philosophy is that creating something is the greatest thing that you can do. Like putting your soul, your life into something and building it, whether it is a business or an art project, or if you're an athlete, like that's your craft. Like you being able to shoot the basketball like Steph Curry is the art, is the creation, right? I just personally fundamentally believe that that's what we're here for. And so when I think about it in the lens of focus and why it is relevant to this, focus is putting your attention on something, right? That's what most people would say it is. That if you looked up a definition on Google, that is what you would find. Placing your attention on some sort of object. That's focus, concentration. That is what most people see it as. But there's a few key points missing from this because it matters what you focus on. So for the longest time, I focused on external things. Instead of focusing on what I was creating, on the craft, I was focusing on external metrics. To give you a little background, I did the sales for a marketing agency, and we did pretty well. Grew it to about 30 grand a month in recurring revenue, and so that gives you like kind of a background of where I was. I was very focused on the external, how I looked, how much money I made, how I was perceived by other people. And so an important caveat is what you put your focus on matters. What you put your attention on matters. So we're all looking like, okay, how do we improve our focus? But the first question we should be asking is, what are we focusing on? What should we be putting our attention on? That's a really important thing. And it actually matters to being able to achieve that flow state. Because then after this phase of my life of focusing on the external results and the metrics, I learned this simple equation, right? I learned that focus at its height, at the best focus that you can get, is flow state. And flow state is the act of creating something. That's ultimately what flow state is as its core. And this was right around the time when I came to this realization that creating something is our purpose. So I started to tie these things together, like, focus, flow state, creation, purpose. Focus went from being this, means to an end. How could I focus more to get better results, to an end in and of itself? Because when I'm focusing at the highest level, I'm creating. Because again, I'm in flow state, and flow state is creation, and creation is my purpose. So when I am focused, I am living my ultimate purpose. So it changed from being a means to an end in and of itself, if that makes sense. Again, this has pretty much become my life philosophy. We're here to create. Live to create is something that I feel super passionate about. Want to write a book about this. And so, again, I would just say like how I came to this. Again, we're talking about my personal approach to understanding it. You can think about it however you want, but for me, focus is something that is really important because it is the end goal of my life. So, of course, to be in that beautiful state of focus is the goal, is the end thing that I'm after. And so for me, it's something that I've spent so much time focusing on, optimizing how to focus, how to get into flow state, because it's a thing of purpose. It's what I'm here for. Because like I said, I tie so much meaning to it. So how would I summarize my perspective without yapping for another 10 minutes? Focus is something we should be optimizing our lives for. It's what I've spent a lot of time doing myself. How do I optimize my life for focus? And I do that because focus is what leads to creation. And I believe that creation is what we're all here for. It's the purpose. So focus is something that's really important. And I've spent a lot of time optimizing for it. So I want to talk about these things. Now that we've got that covered, I want to talk about my super simple 3-step system to focus wherever you are and whenever you are. And it's really simple. It actually is super simple in the name. It comes down to 3 steps. External stillness, shutting out the outside world. Internal stillness, shutting out the millions of voices in your head. And then doing a predetermined task. The paradox with focus is that it starts internally, right? Like to focus on something, you have to be able to focus internally. But to focus internally, you have to quiet the external. So it's almost, again, it's like a loop. Like in order to focus on something externally, you have to have things slow down internally. But in order to slow things down internally, you have to slow things down externally. I don't know if I'm making sense here, but I'll explain it. To expand on this idea a little bit, what do I mean when I say external stillness, to slow down the outside world? I mean removing distractions. So our key state is focus. If we didn't have constant things, destroying our attention, we would be focused. So how do we return to that? We need to remove distractions so that's all that's left is focus. What I would say are the big things that most people could remove are sensory distractions. So loud noises, bright lights, having like the smell of food waft in your room, you're going to be hungry and then you're going to lose focus and then you're not going to be able to work, right? The idea is if we're thinking about how do we essentialize and shut down the external world, we want to make it as simple as possible so that we can focus as much as possible our attention on the task, right? That means you're slowing down the outside world. You're shutting out all input from it, all human interaction. You don't want to have people walking in your room and saying, hey, can I talk to you for 5 minutes? You don't want to be talking to people in a conversation. You don't want to have people next to you speaking and you hearing it, right? No physical clutter. We haven't even talked about the digital world and shutting that down, right? Stopping pop-ups from going up on your screen, loud notification noises, chats popping up, like digital clutter, having a million tabs open. At its core, right? External stillness is removing the distraction around you. If you're working on a computer, that means looking at your physical environment. That's what it is. And removing everything that is distracting you. There should be no notifications. There should be no pop-ups. You should have one tab, the work that you're doing. That is it. And it's like that for the room around you, right? To give you some example, I work in the dark with one red light turned on in the corner of my room, one screen, one tab. I'm focused on either scripting a video, writing something, or filming like this. This is the thing that I'm doing, right? Whatever it is that you're trying to create or focus on for the purpose of this video, whatever you're trying to focus on, you want to shut out everything that isn't that. If it's the basketball and shooting it in the hoop, you want to be in the gym by yourself, focused on putting the basketball in the hoop. You don't want to be having a mid-conversation with someone else. I mean, obviously there's nuance here, right? If you're training with a partner or if you got music to help you focus, like there's certain things here, but the idea is you wouldn't want a bunch of people walking in and distracting you. You wouldn't want strobe lights in the gym making it so that you couldn't shoot the ball unless that's what you're training for. The idea is shut out the outside world. This is the first step in this super simple system. Shut out the outside world. The second step is internal stillness. Now, what does that mean? The key here is quieting your mind. So once you've shut out the outside world, your mind finally has room to focus. But at this point, it's shifting its attention from thing to thing, right? When this is something you'll notice. When you quiet the external world and you just with yourself, you'll realize your voice and your thoughts going at a million miles an hour. You'll think about this thing and then that thing, and you'll be like, how can I focus? Like, what's going on? The key here is to gain internal stillness. You want to remove what is distracting your attention inside, right? You want to get rid of stress, worries, anxieties, outside demands. You don't want to be daydreaming about random things, replaying conversations in your head. Oh, I wish I would have said this or that, going on that endless thought loop. You want to take your mind off distractions, and then you'll actually have a chance to focus, right? So if you can quiet the outside world and focus your internal world on one task, this is really the two main steps. The third step is that you want to have a predetermined task. If you don't have something that's ready to do, like if you don't have, this is the purpose of my focus block, you're not going to be able to do anything. If you're just sitting down like, okay, I want to focus on work, but you don't have like what the thing is that you're trying to work on set up and ready to do, you're not going to be able to do it. If you're in school, you want to have the paper that you're supposed to write pulled up. You don't want to be like, okay, I'm going to do homework. What homework do I have to do? Should I do this work or that work? Or should I shoot the ball 3-pointers first or practice my free throw? Like, you want to know exactly what you're going to do. I'm recording this video. I'm scripting this. I'm writing this chapter of my book. Define the task, the object that you want to put your attention on. Like, what's that thing that you're going to focus on? Shut out the outside world, calm the internal world, and determine the thing that you are going to focus on before you sit down to do it. That's the super simple 3-step system to focus essentially wherever and whenever you want. If you're in a foreign country around the world like I am sometimes, as long as I have a quiet external environment, I've quieted my internal environment with some practices that I'll share later, and I've got a predetermined task that I'm going to do, I can work pretty well. That is what I would say is the super simple 3-step system. Up next, we're going to talk about the 3 best methods to go just from normal focus to actual flow state. So before we do that, let's define the difference, right? Focus, as I said before, is just concentrating your attention on, a specific object of thought, right? Let's say it's the homework or the 3-point shot. You're focusing on the thing. The difference between that and flow state is flow is when you're focusing at a supernatural level. Your abilities transcend your current capabilities. Time becomes distorted. You enter a creative phase that honestly is just best described as things flowing. The science behind this is solid, but to be very honest, it's something that we really don't know a lot about. It's like, why is it that some people, why is it that the basketball player 1 out of 100 times will show up to the game and he'll make every shot? That's flow state. We don't quite understand how it happens, but we know there's a difference between the two. And some people have determined what are essentially important things so that you can qualify for this. So one of the leading researchers, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, he was a psychotherapist or something like that in the early 90s, I think. And he talked about some different things that I stole from him. They're the 3 methods that I'm going to talk about. But when it comes to flow, there are a couple things that everyone agrees upon help someone get into the flow state. Because if you don't have these 3 things, you're never going to be able to get into flow. These 3 things are when your skill and challenge meet each other. So if you're a tennis player, right? I don't want to go out and play Roger Federer today because he's way, 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 way better than me. And it wouldn't even be an appropriate challenge. Like, I suck at tennis and he's one of the best players in the world. There's too much of a gap there. Neither of us could get into flow state. It'd be too easy and boring for him, and it'd be too hard and stressful for me. You want to find the balance. You want to, if you're a sports player, you want to play someone at an appropriate level. If you're a knowledge worker, you want to do a task that meets skill and challenge together. That's step one. Step two, removing failure. And then step three, making whatever you're doing autolectic. And I'll talk about this in a second, in depth. Again, just to expand on these ideas a little bit more. Balancing skill and challenge is the most well-known explanation of flow. Most people, when they talk about flow state, they talk about this, having skill, challenge meet together. So that way, it's fun, joyful, you're energized, you can grow, you feel like you're getting better at something. But really, like, most people don't actually give you any practical steps to apply this. The obvious one is just do stuff that meets the current skill level you're at. But I found that that's kind of hard to apply, especially if you don't know where you're at in the world of things, right? So two of the things that I've found help with this, help entering flow and kind of matching skill and challenge, is stretching yourself. So making the activity slightly harder than what would be easy. So for me, like what would be easy showing up and making this video would be like doing 5 minutes of talking. I want to stretch myself a little bit more. And then I also want to make it fun. So part of flow state is that it's just like the act itself you get lost in. But the more you can make it fun, set rewards, have some sort of social element where you're talking with other people, where you feel like you're getting better, because when you get better at something is you're having fun, right? The more that you have fun, the greater chance that you can give yourself of entering flow state. So it's kind of somewhat hard advice to give for this specific stage. Either you're making things too easy or too hard, or you're in that sweet spot where things are getting better. You want to try to stay in that sweet spot. There's really no extra nuance there. That's really the only explanation that comes with this. When it comes to removing failure, this one honestly has been life-changing for me. It's going to differ in severity based on whatever, personal development level that you're at. But at some point, like you have to remove the fear of failure, because you have to. It just, failing has to mean nothing to you. You cannot have anything in the back of your head about failing, because it's going to stop you from entering flow state, which again is what I believe to be the purpose of everything. I'll explain it in a second, but as far as like a practical step that if you're experiencing fear right now, what would I tell you? Play out the worst case scenario. So for me, right, I just left this marketing agency doing $30,000 a month, my main income, a successful business at 22 years old, to start doing content full time. Of course, the natural person would think that I have fear in the back of my head. What's going to happen if this doesn't work out, if I can't make some money from this, blah, blah, blah. A couple months ago, I was in that fear state. I said, okay, let me play out the worst case scenario. And I said, let's say that I upload for the next 12 months, which is how much time I've got in savings and all that kind of stuff. Let's say that I upload for the next 12 months and nothing happens at all. Then what? Well, I will have uploaded for 12 months, given this dream a shot, and I can basically just go right back to what I was doing before in probably 2 weeks. So it would take me 2 weeks to get back to where I was before, and really nothing would happen. That at that point removed all the failure or fear of failure that I had, and I was able to give this all I've got. So what is the worst thing that could happen? Accept it, be okay with it, move on. Because if you have fear in the back of your head, you're never going to be able to enter flow state. So the reason that having no fear, and let me tell you why. The reason that having no fear of failure is important is because when you remove the fear of failure, you get out of your own head. You're no longer self-conscious. You're not like worried about what other people think about you, what's going to happen, how am I going to pay rent, blah, blah, blah. You're no longer thinking about that stuff. Here's a great example. How could LeBron or Michael Jordan hit a game-winning shot if they were worried about what other people would say if they lost, or if they were constantly worried, thinking in their head, like, oh, what if I miss? What if this? What if that? They're obviously not going to be able to hit the game winner. So the idea is, when you remove self-consciousness, when you remove your awareness, then you're able to free yourself, expand your ego, go beyond what you normally think. This is kind of like some, you know, consciousness like level stuff, but at a basic level, think about it like this, right? When you remove fear, you remove the constant worrying in your head, which again, like we talked about in that first step of gaining internal focus, is an important thing. You have to quiet your mind. The best way to do that is to remove fear of failure, because you're able to see beyond yourself. So you can think about it like some weird energetic frequency thing where fear is low on the spectrum and you want to raise your frequency and all that kind of stuff. Or you can just think about it really serious, like very practical. Like flow state means that you have to be out of your head to access flow state. You can't be thinking about yourself. You have to be so immersed in what you're doing that everything else fades away. So you cannot be afraid, and this is a really important point. Now the third thing, becoming autolectic. This thing, it sounds simple, but it's really the most profound truth I've ever come across. So for something to be autolectic, it means that it's an end in and of itself, right? There's no external result or goal or anything that's tied to what you're doing. Doing the thing is actually what brings you the joy. That, like, whenever you're doing something that's like this, like, you know, I'm just eating the food that I really like because I like it. I'm not really doing anything. There's no reason for me to do it. That's an autolectic activity. So to get into flow state, the thing you're doing has to be an autolectic activity. It has to be the thing that brings the joy. The basketball player has to like basketball, right? The big game that they're going after, that's the autolectic activity. They're not doing it for anything else. They're not doing it for fame or fortune or anything. They're doing it because they like to put the ball in the basket. For the actor, it's the movie set. Like when you're in flow, you're doing something just for the sake of doing it. There's no thoughts outside of you like, okay, what if this video goes viral? Like what's going to happen to my life, blah, blah, blah. That's not why you're doing it. There's nothing tied to it. You're only doing it because you like to do it. You like to share your thoughts with the world and talk about focus and flow state and creativity. That's what I'm doing. So this is a task like that for me. The practical step here is only do the things that you actually want to do. This, for most people, is really hard, but it should be easy. Like, do the things that you want to do for no other reason than you want to do them. Don't think about some business and be like, okay, Alex said he made a lot of money in SMMA, a marketing agency. I'm going to do that because I want money, because I want to buy a car so I can impress this person. Don't think about it like that. Think about it like, what is the thing that I just want to do for no other reason than just doing it? And again, this sounds simple, but it really is a profound, philosophical idea that I kind of just stumbled upon. Okay, so going into the final thing, my theory on turning flow into just your normal state of existence, your normal state of consciousness. Now, my theory is that it's possible to downsize your life to include only the things that put you in flow. Like you're only doing the things that you like, which would essentially make your life one perpetual flow state. You go from one activity to the next, only doing what you thoroughly enjoy. You're just constantly in a state of flow. And so, again, this is one of those things, sounds simple, it's not, but flow is what we're all after. So I think it's worth a shot to literally shut out everything that is not flow. Because if you cut out what isn't flow, what is left is flow state or focus or whatever you want to call it. So I'll leave you with this. The number one non-negotiable for focus, and at the highest level, obviously, like you got to be able to control your attention. It's an essential part of focus, flow state, all those things. And so go into this thing, like what's the number one non-negotiable? The only way that I know of to train your ability to focus your attention, control your attention, is with meditation. Meditation is the key to not just controlling your mind, but reaching higher states of consciousness, whether or not you think so or not. It's like the reason that it's not, this isn't necessarily what I wanted to talk about in the video, but I have to include it because if we're talking about focus and flow state and how do we improve our focus, we got to be able to focus our attention on something. And to be able to control your attention, there's really only one thing that helps you do that, and it's meditation. And so the only non-negotiable I have for focus is that you need to meditate. So get a teacher, learn it properly. I promise if you do, it will literally change your life. It definitely did for me. That's why I talk about it so much. So, okay, that is how to unlock insane focus on demand. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing, follow, like, comment, do all that kind of stuff. Consider staying around if you like my philosophy on the world of creating something being super important. I really just want to inspire people to create and talk about this idea of creativity. I think it's such an untapped niche. And it's really just genuinely what I love talking about and thinking about. And so it's what I'm going to share on this channel. So thank you. I would appreciate any thoughts, concerns, anything like that in the comments. And then if you want to, feel free to DM me on Instagram. I'd love to continue this conversation there. Appreciate it. Have a great day.